We all love our toys. We love making that all-important purchase. Whether we're walking by a retail shop or whether or not we're looking online and browsing online shopping, you still have that itchy trigger finger to either swipe your credit card on the way out or click buy it now on something. But either way, we're here to talk about the impulse buy and the potential regret that comes with being a toy collector. Now, this is a special pre-recorded, I want to say offline edition, but not really. But this is a pre-recorded, premiered version of the Toy Connections online live stream, or TKO. I couldn't be there live, so we decided to record this early on and premiere it in a manner where the live chat is still active, even if I can't engage the chat in real time. So if I'm not pulling up your comments, well, you know this from before when I've had to do this. I'm not ignoring the comment section. I'm just not there at the time physically. So anyway, let's bring in our guest from the highly articulated YouTube channel. You've seen him on TKO before, a wealth of G.I. Joe knowledge and toy knowledge in general. But Adam, welcome back, buddy.
Hey, Ken, what's going on, my friend?
Oh, not much. I just thought that if we were going to do this impulse buy thing, rather than me just pulling up a bunch of pictures and saying, shouldn't have bought that, okay, I'm glad about this one. Maybe not that one. Okay, this one's okay. Rather than doing that, I'm like, let's get some form of human interaction, even if we can't have the live chat today. So I don't know. Like, you always hear the term impulse buy, and I've heard it many times in all walks of life before I got back into adult aged toy collecting, and I don't know, like applying it to toy collecting. Who knew 20 years ago I'd be applying this term, or anyone would be applying this term to toy collecting? But have you done it? I'm gonna assume yes. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been on this stream. We wouldn't have said yes. But maybe why don't you start us off and let us know where you may have done such a thing?
You know what, I was thinking about it, and you asked me to do the video, and you told me the topic, and I agreed to do the video before the topic, which was maybe my first mistake. But you know what the biggest thing is? You know what the biggest mistake, if I could sort of go back and fix it? I probably shouldn't have got into toy collecting as an adult, because that's the reality, right? Like when we were kids, we were limited by, birthdays, special occasions. We're dependent on our parents to buy us stuff. I figured out early on, if I get a paper route, I can start buying my own stuff. But really, we were dependent on other people. I mean, even if I had the money, I couldn't get to the store, so I had to get a ride somewhere to get. Now we live in this age where, like, I mean, I could go and buy something online right now while we're having this conversation and regret it in an hour when I realize that I just did it for the sake of the video. But I think you get my meaning, that like we're already walking a fine line, right? Because there's already the reality of, like, should I have bought any of this stuff? Was this a priority over other things in my life? If we're being objective, the answer is no.
It's not. Love to believe it is. So just the other day, I did a recording with Ostradamus Toys and Gazz, and I saw like my phone blink, and I thought maybe it's a message from my wife. So maybe I'll quickly sneak a look at my honey to-do list.
Yeah.
My friend Jeff, 10 minutes down the road, posted something that I couldn't avoid, and I literally, like, while on camera, I typed claim with one hand and press enter. So when you say I could literally buy something right now, I actually did it the other day. While I didn't want to be rude and not pay attention to the guests, but the reality of it is it happened, right? And it was a pre-recording, so I wasn't like ignoring the chat, and I figured the two guys on camera would forgive me if that did happen. But man, it's just one of those, when you mentioned it, I thought about it. And when you also said that starting toy collecting could have been an impulse buy when you first got into it as an adult, that's exactly what happened to me, right? Christmas of 2002. I'm visiting my sister who lives in Boston at the time, because her husband, Mike, was doing his medical residency there at the time. So I go down there to visit. They don't live there anymore. They moved out west. But when they were living there and he was doing his medical residency, I can't even remember the store I walked into that had season 2 of the Transformers. I bought the DVD box set. I came back at the end of the holiday season, and the floodgates opened and have not closed for more than 2 freaking decades.
So the thing that sort of set you off was actually getting the DVD, like getting the cartoon, and
Yes.
going, man, I remember these toys. I love them. I need them
Yes.
again.
Yes, that's what got me in, right? So, and then of course I started buying Transformers reissues. Then I realized there was a community locally, and I had to learn to navigate my way around that and be like, okay, who's going to overcharge, who's going to undercharge? Because I was a university student at the time, right? So disposable income was not easy to come by, and ever since then it's been strategic buy on top of impulse buy. And right now I'm doing more strategic buys because there's things that are popping up on the secondary market that I really want. And yeah, strategic meaning guilty pleasure, right? So there's no, it's justified. But I'm not sure if you had anything that came to mind, but I get a few years into collecting, and I'm gonna share a screen here, but like I know they're coming back with more Street Fighter figures through Jada Toys, and I know SH Figure Arts and Storm Collectibles have done them in the past. This is when Sota Toys did them, probably somewhere around 12 to 13 years ago. Sota Toys did Street Fighter, and that started as an impulse buy. And why I added the words "collecting regrets" to this podcast episode, which is different than the one we did with Mad Hatter and Dole. This is like impulse buys that led to regrets, or as opposed to just long-term
bad decisions.
Right, long-term bad decisions. This kind of started as an impulse buy as well. Like I'm gonna Ryu and Ken, and then the rabbit hole deepens. And then eventually my regret was selling all these Sota Toy Street Fighters because they came with a lot of accessories. So I didn't know how to keep up with all the accessories. I hadn't been savvy enough to bag and label them like I am now with all the extra hands on the Super 7 and NECA figures. Now that I've gotten rid of these, if I get into the Jada Toys ones, which I'm not sure if I will or not, if they do have extra accessories, I'm able to navigate and manage. It's not just going to be tear it open and play with it. It's going to be bag the accessories, decide how I want to display it, if I want to display it. So that's one of the things. I don't know how well you remember this line, but that's one of the two. Yeah. In any case, this is one of the things that got my mind that's kind of got my mind going. Now, the other one, and I managed to lose my place here. Goodness, I managed to lose my place on my computer screen here. But the other thing that I did an impulse buy, got rid of, unlike this one, which I regret. The one that I don't regret. I'm just going to share a different screen here. I pulled a web browser rather than photos, just because it was an easier search, and I didn't actually have the physical figures in hand. But the one thing that I also got into, that this one I don't regret getting rid of, is when I got a little bit deeper into UFC Jakks figures, because they were already doing wrestling. Jakks was already doing wrestling figures at the time.
Yeah.
Right. So UFC was kind of a big thing. And after that Ultimate Fighter run in 2005, up, for a decade later, and the rise of Conor McGregor, a lot of people still like it. I got into this around like the Brock Lesnar, Wanderlei Silva, George St. Pierre era. As I started buying them, I started to realize I don't need sports figures as collectibles. If I want sports memorabilia, you can get signed 8x10s. You can meet athletes at conventions. There's a different way that you can collect. You can do it this way, but for me, it didn't resonate with me long term. So while I regret getting rid of the Street Fighter stuff and wished I could have a do-over, this is an impulse buy that led to a rabbit hole that I don't regret getting into. So that's kind of how I feel. Like, do you have similar stories?
Well, I mean, my sort of gateway, like the thing that I bought that was the beginning of the end, if you will, was when Force Awakens came out, and there was the whole. I got back in late. I sold off my collection late. Like, I only sold off my collection about 10 years ago, like my childhood collection. And sold off all of it. Like, I'm looking at the shelf of the items that I kept, and there's like a half a dozen items that I kept of my whole sort of childhood collection. I sold it for, I don't even want to talk about it. I sold it for pennies on the dollar, and it was like, I had good stuff in there. I had a lot of stuff that I've since bought again, and paid market value for, so I know what it's worth now. But I wasn't thinking that at the time. Sold it all off, thinking I'm an adult now. I'm with this lovely woman who is going to adult with me. We have a home. We're going to have a family. I'm no longer a child. I don't need toys. Boy, was I wrong, because I have now realized, thanks to the New York Times, that I will be a kidult for the rest of my life. And it's
no cursing. Just joking.
It's a condition. It's a condition that I don't think I'll ever be able to remedy. But when the Force Awakens came out, and there was sort of the whole hoopla with all the toys, and we were, my wife was pregnant. I was involved somewhat. Ask your parents. But I was involved in some respects, but we were going to Toys R Us because we needed, strollers, and we needed, baby bottles and clothes and things like that. And I hadn't been in a Toys R Us in a long time. And the Lego section, the Lego Star Wars, was like a revelation to me. And very, very early on, maybe one of the first 3 or 4 trips to Toys R Us, I picked up the Rey's land speeder thing, the little speeder bike thing that she has.
Yep.
And it was, Lego parts that I'd never seen as a kid. It was designed better than anything I'd ever seen. The minifigure was like printed and had flesh tone, not just yellow. And it was just like, man, toys have come a long way since I bought my last figure in the late 90s or whatever. And then from there, it was regular trips to Toys R Us to get Lego, and then Lego turned into Marvel Legends, and then it was Black Series, and then it was on and on and on. And then, I started getting back into some of the vintage stuff, and I think some of my regrets are like my impulse buys were just like you said, like claim sale. Like once I figured out Facebook groups, and once I figured out that like everything that I'd ever owned was accessible to me in a Facebook group, that was the period where I was making the most impulse buys, where it was, like you said, claim sales and things like that, where, I was like, well, I should buy this because it's come up, not really understanding, not really realizing that it will come up again. If you make connections with people, maybe somebody's got a spare one, and maybe there's a trade to be made, or maybe there's a deal to be had. Because I think, we have this miseducation, maybe, like we just don't have enough information sometimes. So I think a lot of my impulse buys are based on that, the feeling like, oh, this is the first time I've seen it, this might be the last time I've seen it. And almost a FOMO thing, but not quite, like, because now I don't have that. Like now I've figured out that like this all comes back, like
you learn quickly, I find I'm actually more impulsive than you are. And
I know you are, Ken.
And you've been collecting as an adult for like 4 years, right?
No, about 8 years.
About 8 years. And I've been at it for now more than 20.
Yeah.
And like I've now been a collector for longer. Like, God, I was 20 years old when I got into it. I'll be 41 when this episode comes out. Like, and I still haven't figured it out. Like, I'm still sitting there like, Adam, what do I do? Like, I kind of treat you as the adult in the crew. And I'm like, I don't know. And you're like, well, Ken, you got to weigh this and that and this and that. And,
yeah.
8+ years ago, I didn't have an Adam to ask that question to, but it's weird, isn't it? Like, and I think we met on Facebook. I can't remember if we met because of a claim sale or not. I know it's a classified. I know because of the GI Joe classified group, or maybe I just asked you for a classified.
No, vintage GI Joe. We met through the Canadian toy gallery.
Okay, yeah. We met there.
And then other Canadian kind of GI Joe primarily vintage groups.
Mm-hmm.
And then that was like I think Toy Gallery was like one of the very first groups that I ever joined on Facebook. Like, I got into toy collecting before I realized that there was a community behind it.
Yes.
And you know, it's been a weird, it's been sort of a weird progression of, you know, trying to learn what other people already know, you know, like okay, well, here's what you do, you know, you join the groups, you meet people, you have, and as an introvert, a lot of the social things, a lot of the interactions are very foreign to me. Even as a kid, like, I remember as a kid, like, I had, you know, from the ages, like, depending on where I lived, because I moved a few times when I was pretty young, and depending on where I lived, I kind of had like one or two friends who also were into toys. And it was a huge bonus if they were kind of into slightly different stuff than I was. Um, but for the most part, like, I was friends with kids to play with their toys. So I've always been sort of toy centric, introverted kid. So the idea of like Facebook groups, the idea of like doing videos like this, to me as a 12-year-old would have been like, it would have been something I would have been like, nah, I'm not interested. I have no interest. But, you know, as it turns out, you know, there's lots of cool people out there that just happen to have a lot of things in common with me, and I've learned a lot from other collectors. And it's I think sometimes we impulse buy because other people tell us to as well. You know, it's like a toy comes up and somebody posts, you know, whether it's a chat group or whether I sort of post something to you or you post something to me, and it's sort of like, hey, have you seen this? Have you checked this out? Are you going to pick it up? And I'm like, should I? Like, will this be a regret later if I don't buy it now? I've now kind of figured out that most impulse buys turn into regrets, which is why I'm pretty good at kind of holding off on a lot of things. Even with things like the Sky Striker or the His Tank, which is going to end up over there, from the HasLab projects or Kickstarters, whether that's Action Force or Animal Warriors of the Kingdom or what have you. I tend to sort of weigh the pros and cons. I kind of look at, like, I'm usually like the last day backing these things, or like when there's a pre-order window, I'm kind of getting it towards the end of the pre-order window. I tend to have a tendency towards patience, and that has a large, you know, like, that's largely because I have had so many impulse buys. I also have a tendency, and I didn't, you know, it was, you know, my lovely wife, who I wouldn't say supports my toy buying habits, but she understands that this is sort of an outlet for me, and I could be spending this money somewhere else. I'm terrible with money. She knows that I'm going to spend money somewhere, so you know, this is not the worst way I could spend my money, I guess. But she knows me well enough to sort of have pointed out to me that when I get sort of into something, I get really fixated and I go really, like, I dive really deep really quickly. So she has sort of taught me not to be as, like impulsive doesn't even cover it, because it's like like I'll spend a whole month just going mental about something. The most recent thing that I went kind of a little bit overboard with was Mythic Legions. I was on holidays January of last year, and I was chatting with Mike from eCollectibles,
Yep.
about Mythic Legions. I didn't have any Mythic Legions at all in January
I
of,
remember when you had none. I remember that.
and now, you know, I'm an admin in the group. We're designing logos for, like, you know,
I see the hat. That's
our
the
Canadian
collectibles
faction.
hat.
Um, like, well, this is like the Knights of the North Canadian Mythic
Yes.
Legions group, like, official faction designed by Nate
Yes.
March, the official
Yes.
art.
He,
and
he
that
he puts a sticker in the boxes that he sends people.
and that's
Right.
the kind of stuff that I do. I go like, well, if I'm gonna get involved, I'm getting really involved, and I feel like I know more about Mythic Legions than some people that have been doing it for years, and it's like, so I know that, you know, the impulse buy is very often the like it's like the first step for
The
like
gateway.
full
It's the
addiction.
gateway.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
So I have to be very, very careful with impulse buys.
Look, I've gone down a lot of different rabbit holes. Everybody knows it. Everybody sees it all the time. I know what you mean by Mythic Legions. That's kind of how it started as well. I'm like, bet you can't get just
Thundercats.
one. Recently, Thundercats. Recently, TMNT. As of a number of months ago,
Yeah.
like you watched me go down the Super Seven rabbit hole,
Uh-huh.
right? And we talked about, oh, it costs too much and all that. Even Motu Origins, right? Like
Uh-huh. It
when
adds up.
when Wondar first came out, right? I didn't get it. I told myself I wasn't going to impulse buy it, and then of course, one of the patrons of the channel, Troy, was like, "Hey, did you get one? I could ship one your way." I'm like, "Okay, well, I guess I'm getting the Origins Wonder Bread He-Man, right?" Sunman, I like what it represents in terms of it wasn't part of the He-Man line in the vintage day, and it was conceived by a minority mom who had the figure made so that her son could have something to aspire to. Then it got made its way into the He-Man line, and I love the lore behind that and the story of how it came about. So like this became an impulse buy. I think I saw it at Walmart and I just grabbed it. I'm like, I just like what it represents. Now, it hasn't sent me down an Origins rabbit hole, thankfully. So that's why these are impulse buys that I currently do not regret. Well, sorry, anything that has to do with expanding the lore of a franchise in a meaningful way that isn't just a character for the sake of a character, but the mail away nature and the Wonder Bread myth behind this, the unofficial to official nature. Sorry,
Yeah.
I think it was always official, but it was its own IP.
Yeah, yeah.
So the official christening into the He-Man lore later on and the backstory behind that,
Uh-huh.
I'd love to do a video to talk about that. I know Pixel Dan did a video kind of explaining it. I'd love to do like one of those like feature presentation type of videos that I sometimes do with the backstory of stuff. Of course, I don't do a lot of He-Man pre-produced because my confidence as a content creator is still building, right? Like you'll always create content around what you're most comfortable with. So for me, it's always going to be Transformers and G.I. Joe, wrestling where I can. And then like Motu and Star Wars have made their way in here and there. And then when I do episodes like TKO episodes, you'll see more Motu, Thundercats, TMNT, whatever talk, right? But I'm still building my library of brain power to try to get
But I
that
think
done in a pre-produced
you
fashion.
you connect with the right people and you have the right intentions, right? Like that's I think the content that you create comes across as very confident and comes across as very well versed, and I think you're very attuned to the fact that you're not gonna just sort of throw something out there that you don't know anything about.
Although
My
I complained to you before we started here that
Well, yeah.
I've been called out on not knowing something when I really knew, but kind of misspoke. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, it's true from a certain point of view, but person keeps commenting and spamming me, telling me I'm wrong. I'm like, but it's not really wrong. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's only half right.
But a misunderstanding, a misinterpretation is one thing. I mean, you're not throwing things out there that are completely fictitious or
Yeah.
completely rumor or whatever.
Oh, of course not. No.
Opinion versus facts matters. We all know that now in the toy collecting community. I think my niche is that I don't know anything about anything. I think that's like I think I might appeal to a crowd that that, that just really is owning their ignorance. Because I've been thinking about this so much, and it's channels like yours, it's channels like Pixel Dance, it's channels like Toy Galaxy, formerly known as Toy Galaxy, Secret Galaxy now, where the depth of knowledge that is out there is so immense. And as I said, like as a kid, I was playing with my toys, but I was like oblivious to like what was going on. I wasn't following plot lines for any cartoons. Like I'd see a GI Joe is probably my main thing, my main squeeze. Um, it's the toy line and probably the lore that I know the most about. That being said, um, there's episodes of the cartoon that I've seen once. There's issues of the comic book that I've never read.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm okay with that. I'm not claiming to be an expert. I'm not claiming, and I think sometimes maybe like some of the impulse buys are me, is my like kid mind of like, that toy's cool, and I buy it and I go, but the IP is garbage, and I don't care about this toy anymore. Once I go a little bit deeper, sometimes it's a toy that, whether it's a figure or a playset or whatever, sometimes it's just something that it just doesn't resonate, and I think that's, for me, with the amount of stuff that I have, and for kind of the collection rules that I've set for myself, of not having too much in storage. And by that I mean like virtually nothing in storage. Pretty much everything that I have is either on the shelves behind me or in my office here on the other walls. And if it's not, I kind of go, I probably shouldn't have bought that. And so if I buy something and it doesn't immediately go, like if something doesn't get cleared off the shelf for that to be put on the shelf, I probably made a mistake.
Yeah, fair enough. But when it comes to impulse buys, because you're kind of a G.I. Joe classified heavy guy first. Yeah. I know you're into Mythic Legions. I know Animal Warriors of the Kingdom is kind of your building franchise, which I want to talk to you about if we get a chance. But do you find though that like when you had to get the pair of blue ninjas, Kamakura, who for me Kamakura was deep into Devil's Due run, so that was never going to be an impulse buy.
No.
But for you, like when a character that's not really mainline, the Blue Ninjas, even Red Ninja, who had like a late release in the vintage line, would those be impulse buys for you?
On some level, yes. And on another level, no. I mean, the Red Ninja came out, he was figure number 8, I think.
Yes.
So that was early. At that point, I was still feeling like I'll get everything, because this might go 20 figures and then get canceled. The Blue Ninjas were a little bit different. The Blue Ninjas came out recently. Did I need the Blue Ninjas? Probably not. Was it an impulse buy? Probably not, because that's the other thing. My other thing, like maybe this is part of it too. Maybe this is why I don't have as many impulse buys as some other people might. I have a tendency to, like I said, dig really deep. Most lines that I'm buying, I have a couple people that I talk to that might have insights and insider information. The inside baseball stuff is stuff that's important to me, because I don't want to be in a situation where I have to buy it now or regret it because I missed it. The Blue Ninjas, I actually knew about months before they were released.
Yeah.
I had time to prep for that impulse buy.
You are the person who, if I say, I wish they released a character of insert the blank, you're like, and 2 months later we get an announcement, and I'm just like, how did you know? You're like,
don't bother with a custom.
I just went like this, bud. I didn't say nothing. I'm like, oh, okay. So there is that. I don't know. Like, the reason I wanted to bring Animal Warriors to the Kingdom into it is because I started thinking of it as an impulse buy, but it wasn't.
In a way, that's maybe my most recent impulse buy. Okay, no, I will. Wait, I just realized one. My most recent impulse buy, and this has turned into a regret, because I have no idea where I'm going to put them. The Avatar Way of Water, they did those 6-inch scaled, are they the mounts, the dragon things that they like ride on?
What about them?
There's 2 of them. I ordered both of them because they'll be mounts for something else. I didn't buy the Avatar figures. I'm going to put like Mythic Legions figures on them, or Animal Warriors of the Kingdom figures on them. I didn't need those. I don't have anywhere to put them, for one thing. They're going to be like, they'll get pulled out when I play with figures, but they won't be on display. Animal Warriors of the Kingdom, though, I was late. I saw the Kickstarter. I waited. I saw the different figures. I thought, I don't know. I wasn't super keen on Kickstarters at the time. I was, I was still at the point, I think, on some level, where I was like hunting figures in the wild. I was still of the naive opinion that like, oh, it's way more fun, it's way cooler if you pick up everything in the wild. If you have to like go to Toys R Us every day and Walmart every day and make a whole big sort of like your your free time is
Activity. Make it an
consumed.
activity.
Yeah, and it's like, and there is a certain, like there's a certain feeling when you find a figure that you've been hunting for on a shelf. But at the same time, I can save so much time by just ordering things online. I
That feeling disappears quickly too, though, right?
Yeah, but I mean, every once in a while, and that's where I'm at now. Is that like every once in a while when I find something, it's really, really cool. Or like, but you get the same feeling when you find a discounted figure. So I had, I have like tier one is like the stuff that I'll order, day one. Tier two is the stuff that I'll sort of like wait on, and like if it fits in the budget, I'll buy it. Tier three is like if I go to Walmart and it's on clearance, I'm buying it for sure, and that's where I get that sort of feeling, right?
Mm-hmm.
That dopamine rush of like hunting.
Mm-hmm.
That's few and far between. In the relatively small city that I live in, not a lot of clearance stuff, not a great selection. But that's okay because that means I'm spending sort of less tier $3, and I can reallocate that to tier one.
Well, you know what? Speaking of whatever tier of dollars, the reason I don't call Animal Warriors of the Kingdom an impulse buy for me is because I just call it bad influences. It's text Adam, hey, what about this line? Yeah, I'm all in.
You
You
gotta
want
get it.
you want to know about the comic? Okay, we'll
Mhm.
get you there. You want to know about it? Sure. And then of course, getting into Thundercats a bit has given me more. I know it's not lions and cats, it's monkeys and gorillas, but it's the same idea of like animalistic
Yeah.
humans, right? So giving me that, like looking at the character of Pale, kind of a
Mhm.
young guy growing up, kind of like Lionel, right? Kind of a chosen one, looking at
Yep.
Kali, who's the older, more powerful. It's kind of like Mumra in a way, right? Like you see
Mhm.
that, right? And then, Thane is something of a mentor to Pale a bit, right? Lionel had that in a makeshift manner because obviously Jaga was there in a ghost
Yeah.
form, but obviously Tigra, Panthro, and Chitara were considered more seasoned than him. So they were like,
Yeah.
while Jaga was the father mentor, the rest were like the big sibling mentors to him.
Mhm.
And Thane is kind of in the middle, from what I can tell. He's kind of a big sibling. Thane's like the uncle mentor,
Well,
or is he? Did I get that wrong?
Thane's like the dad mentor because he's
Okay.
Pale's dad.
Is he actually his dad?
Well, I don't want to spoil anything.
Which
So
issue is that revealed?
issue one, like right at the beginning, he says he did. Yeah, it's like, did you just look at the pictures again, Ken?
Maybe.
No, Thane, for all intents and purposes, is Pale's dad. So he's a mentor, but there's also sort of a father-son dynamic, which is a little bit different than you see in Thundercats because
Okay.
there's sort of
I've forgotten. I just remember. What happened was the fact that Pale, and this is another spoiler alert, was something of a clone of Kali that overshadowed all the backstory. So when I read that, I went back and reread those
what?
pages a few times,
Yeah.
and then I forgot everything that happened before.
Yes.
And I told myself, read those issues before because Pale has a backstory with his family, and Thane is
Yeah.
involved. And I meant to like reabsorb that, and I didn't because the whole Kali tie-in overtook everything. So like my lack of like one day you're gonna see Ken put together this like Animal Warriors of the Kingdom video that's like all production wise, kind of like the Transformers videos I do, and I'm gonna sound like I know what I'm talking about. Then someone will come back to this episode and say, "Remember the time you forgot that they were
Yeah.
actually father and son?"
I'm pretty sure I'll get a consulting credit on that video because that's I'm absolutely, yeah. It's funny because I like you said, like I'm telling everybody that will listen about this line because I absolutely love it. Um, Despite the fact that I kind of dragged my feet on it and I waited it out, and it wasn't even till like I didn't even back the Kickstarter. It was the backer kit. Like I think it was like a full year later. The backer kit came up, and I was like, okay, I got to get in on these, because then all the unlocks were there. Then it was like, okay, here's what we're doing. The Kickstarter thing, the model, it just, it's still weird to me. And now that I've sort of like backed multiple
Did
Kickstarter,
you get the Roboskull?
I backed the 6-inch figures and they were
Okay.
almost.
Okay. So
I
now, so you've gotten you've navigated your way a bit around Kickstarters now. Yeah.
yeah,
I
I have more
swear. Sorry.
confidence in Kickstarters now. I have like
Yeah. Sorry, I'm picturing my future Animal Warriors with the Kingdom video and scripting it and talking all savvy and going back to forgetting the initial relationship between two key characters.
Yeah.
Right. Again, I blame Kali for everything because of the plot twist that happens near the end of that first issue, start of the second issue, type of thing. Anyway, I blame all that on, anyway. Let's ride right past that. And
But I need that. Like, the comic book wasn't out, right? I read the first issue of the comic book before I was all in on Animal Warriors of the Kingdom. So that's part of it too, is that like, if you show me figures that have no sort of connection to anything, like the Avatar mounts, I kind of lose interest, because I'm like, how to be like, what's my play pattern? And for me, and I know that I'm probably in the minority of adult collectors that like plays with my toys and like wants to pull them off the shelf pretty regularly. The fact that there was a comic book that gave me, personalities to the characters, the fact that they're doing a tabletop board game, meant that I was gonna be like even more encouraged and more engaged with the physical toys. It all kind of came together in a perfect package that really, to me, is one of, if not the only new toy line, that really has every element that sort of the toy lines that really grabbed me as a kid has. Like, there's more to it than just, hey, look at this cool action figure, and isn't the sculpt great? Because that's well and good, and for a lot of people that's enough. For me, it's just not. So impulse buys to me are very often things that I buy that are like an IP that I don't have any sort of connection to.
you kind of make your own headcanon and kind of,
yeah,
right? Yeah, that makes sense, right? Like Mythic Legions for a lot of people.
I don't have a connection.
But for a lot of people, it was Mythic Legions until you go into the Source Horseman website and start looking at the what's there.
And as I said, in January of 2022, having no Mythic Legions and having a number of people sort of that I was chatting with say like, oh, you should just get a couple. They're really great. And I was like, oh, well, I don't know. And then I went to Source Horseman. I read like every single bio. I read like every page that they had of lore. I read the comic book that they had in PDF form. Like I went really, really hard on the lore, and I went, okay, I don't need all this lore. So my Mythic Legions kind of has a headcanon that omits certain things and
that's fine. It happens. It happens.
Certain things. But it, again, even with Mythic Legions, it was some of the backstories that really drew me in. If you're familiar with Mythic Legions, Xylona's flock is the faction that I have absolutely the most love for. It's full of critters and elves and sort of magical stuff. The knights and skeletons, which so many people love, don't really do as much for me as they do for a lot of other people. So I had to sort of navigate my way into that fandom in a weird way. I was aware of that brand for years and years and years. It would have been an impulse buy if I had sort of backed the first Kickstarter or even the second.
Would have been a long time ago. But I will say though that like that Attila and Gorgo set just looks amazing. And maybe I'll try to pull up the I was gonna say the BBTS image, but they get enough press. Maybe I'll pull up the E-Collectibles image on this.
So he's got it on there. That's where I've got mine on order.
He might be sold out though. Attila and Gorgo. It's such
I'm shocked.
I mean, this will give us a chance to pump Mike a little bit here. He'll be grateful that we shared this. But he
might go too though, because like, if I'm honest, he I've said this before, but he and I kind of struck up a friendship after he called me out for something that I did in a group where he thought I was like playing favorites to another online retailer. And And he and I started chatting, and sort of through that chat, we kind of became friends. And then I started ordering things from him.
That's interesting how that comes out, eh?
Yeah, yeah.
So can you see Attila here?
Yeah, he
Yeah, you
looks.
can. He looks fantastic. Sorry, I'm navigating on a different tab. That's why I can't see. But he's still. Oh no, it does say sold out on the bottom corner there.
But
Right, like look.
yeah. So they updated that figure. It's like a 2.0 figure, like a version 2 if you're a GI Joe fan, right? Like
Yep.
it's an update. While some of the parts are similar to the original, like that helmet got updated, the shoulder pads, the pauldrons got updated. Those 3D sculpted shields, they're coming out with faction shields for like all the factions, or they've done a few so far. They look so much better than just the ones that had a decal on them, which I have behind me somewhere.
But then you look at the Gorgo figure that's part of it as well.
Oh, fantastic. And again, like a version 2, that 3D, Legion of Arethyr shield, more detail, more paintwork, wired capes from CJ Jessam, who is a Canadian guy. Really, really super nice, super sweet dude in Ontario. And once you sort of get into Mythic Legions, like you can use head cannon, you can pull in head cannon, you can pull in different cannons. I'm a Lord of the Rings guy and a Redwall guy. Like there's certain fantasy IPs that I'm into, and certain fantasy
Motu,
kind of
right?
don't, but there's certain IPs that don't have toys, right?
Yeah.
There's certain things that I wanted toys for that weren't really out there. And Mythic Legions is a funny one because it's the one where like my head canon is sort of the canon that I use for my buying purchases. I'm not buying a main character. I'm not buying like the main protagonist of a cartoon or a comic book. I'm buying elves because I like elves, or orcs because the elves need to fight somebody, or fuzz monks because they're adorable and awesome. Or
Robert
whatever.
Burbles.
What's that?
I said it's like the Robert Burbles from
Yeah. Well, yeah, right.
Ewoks and yeah.
I love Ewoks. I just like
We talked about this, right?
critters get me every time. Like that's Animal Warriors of the Kingdom really grabbed me because it's animals. But because the deeper I got into it, I started talking to Jason from Spiro Toys, and I started talking to Jeremy, who's the guy sort of designing the game. And I know I've peeked behind the curtain, so to speak. I know a lot of the stuff that they have planned, and I was like, I gotta get in now because I don't want to miss out on the stuff that they're doing later. So impulse for me is weird because like my impulse is to learn everything I can and then decide whether I'm gonna buy something.
You're like me when it comes to learning. I just love it. When you said learning, like the lore, I love
Yeah.
how you said a little while ago, I put a bit of a smile on my face, and you're like, yeah, your videos and Pixel Dan and Toy Galaxy. I'm like, did you just put Toy Connections in the same sentence as Pixel Dan and Toy
Yeah, of
Galaxy and
course.
full stopped it? I'm like, I love it. I love it. Put me with the big fish.
You may have a smaller audience, but that doesn't mean that what you're doing is less important or of any less value. That's like, and we've had this conversation before, Ken. I know that sometimes you get in your head about the numbers, and I tell you, don't worry about the numbers. Do what you love, do what you're passionate about, and if it works out, great. And if it doesn't, you can always
You
check all the
gave it a
boxes.
try. Everyone tells me this. Zazel tells me this. Adam, Gazz, Ryan, Phil, everyone. Oz, everyone tells me this. Mega J. I'm forgetting a lot of names, but there's so many. All the patrons, they all tell me this. Just do what you love. Stop worrying about stats. Stop worrying about numbers. And I'm like, okay, I know. It's easier said than done, but
It's
yeah.
part of who you are too. And that's the other thing is that like, you can't, what's the movie called? There's a movie that Jude Law is in, and I think Ben Stiller is in it as well. And Ben Stiller, I'm probably getting this wrong, which I feel terrible about because I worked.
No, you're thinking Matt Damon? That one that they were in?
No,
Matt Damon and Jude Law? Okay.
It was Mark Wahlberg. Mark Wahlberg says to Jude Law, I can't remember what it's called, but it's such a good movie. Mark Wahlberg is a firefighter that doesn't believe in like gas. He wants to save the world, so he rides a bike to fires, and he's always late, so he actually never fights fires. But anyway, I can't remember what it's called.
I hear Huckabees. I heart Huckabees.
Yes.
Okay, I had to Google that one because name wasn't coming up for me either.
So you're Googling it while I'm explaining it?
Yes, I heart Huckabees.
On that. Anyway, there's a moment where Mark Wahlberg says to Jude Law, like, something along the lines of, like, you know, you have to be yourself. And because he's suggesting that Jude Law is fake. And Jude Law says, how can I not be myself? And then Mark Wahlberg has this, like, moment where he's like, how can I not be myself? Like, what?
What does that even mean?
I not be myself. And the reality is you can't not be yourself. I mean, that, and so you got to embrace that. You got to just roll with it. You got to just, you know, all take all the good with the bad, and just, you know, appreciate yourself, you know, put yourself first, do what you love, do what's fun for you. And I think, you know, what's fun for you is digging deep into the lore and learning, right? And then sharing that knowledge with other people. And sometimes, like you said, maybe sometimes you get a little nugget wrong. Maybe there's a little thread there that it's off. But you know, you're trying. It's not a whatever. I mean,
that's what the pinned comments is for. You know, I've done that before where I said, oh wait, I misspoke. I said that the toy line started then, but it was the comics that started then instead. Most people doesn't really matter, because I had that happen once where somebody was like, this was created in this year, not that year. I'm like, I know, but I mixed up the year the comics came out, the year the toys came out. In a toy line I don't collect. I'm sorry. Yeah. You know, that I got, you know, and then I just pinned the comment. Right.
It's nitpicking. It's nitpicking.
Yes.
It's I mean, for the overall, it's irrelevant. Right? Like,
yes. And that's what gets me when someone is kind of like, they get fixated on it, and I'm like, oh, but I put so much effort into everything else. I'm not going to ruin it over that. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, it's like, just maybe it rained for 15 minutes on your wedding day and you didn't get a picture by the gazebo when it was light, and you had to deal with night lighting when you took the picture, or you took it later when you were in your wedding dress. What does it matter? Did you get married or not? Did you say your vows or not? Was the power on in the building? And did your entourage not screw up? And did you get a bunch of alcohol? And was everybody happy after? Did you get your wedding gifts? Did you eventually have a kid? Who cares about a picture? That's the thing. Who cares about one picture by the gazebo that wasn't in your wedding dress when it was light outside? Like, that's literally what we're getting at here, right? So, and unfortunately, but it's one of those things that it bugs me, because I'm a details guy when it comes to this kind of thing. You know, like, I put that expectation on myself. Yeah. So yeah, sorry, I keep dropping accessories on the floor when I'm fiddling. I tend to fidget with toys off camera when I'm talking excitedly, just to calm myself down a little bit. It's like having a stress ball, right?
I can't have them on my desk because I do that same thing, and I've moved. I have a little rubber sort of gasket that goes in the bottom of my phone when it's not plugged in while I'm doing things, and I have to move that away because I was playing with that. So I know the stress. I know that the weird anxious fidgeting. The other thing that I keep grabbing is the light, the remote for my lights, and I can't have to move it all the way. I know what you mean. But yeah, I mean, you mentioned accessories. You mentioned, you know, you have to bag them. You figured out how to do that. I think maybe I've impulse bought, you know, loose incomplete figures from vintage stuff, where I kind of like I thought, oh, I'll pick up the accessory later, or maybe I don't care about it. And then the longer I own it, the more I'm like, well, I can't buy another one because I you know, I want the weapon that it came with, or the backpack or whatever, right? I don't want to buy another complete one, because then I've got two, because I'm lazy and I don't bother selling anything ever. But sourcing, you know, Falcon's backpack antenna, I'm like, like, do I want it? Yes. Do I need it? No. Do I buy a complete one that has it and sell the incomplete one? Like, but then I got to sell an incomplete one to somebody, and somebody's going to be like bummed that they got an incomplete one. I'm like,
yeah, but it's cheaper, much cheaper. The antenna is the expensive part. Well, I guess the knife is expensive too, but the antenna is really the most expensive part, I think.
You remind me that I don't think I have the knife either. I think I have a Falcon with a backpack and a shotgun.
But anyway, but those are the parts that show up in photography. So
and I don't even take pictures of them. I just play with them. So those are the parts that I'm going to lose out in the yard when I'm setting them up with my kids and playing in the dirt with GI Joes. Right?
So maybe you don't need them. Maybe you truly don't need them, and that's okay.
But I mean, that's where like that's my impulse, right? Like my impulse is to get the cheapest thing, and that's not always the best thing, I guess.
I like to budget and buy something a little higher end, and then ask myself later, should I have done that? So, it's happened before. But I will tell you that the Sky Striker behind you was definitely not an impulse buy, and I'm very happy with that purchase because of all the extra figures that came with it. Like maybe you can see Flight Suit Scarlet somewhere over here.
Oh yeah,
right. Maybe you can see the Ramp Rat somewhere behind me. It's got to be somewhere behind me. Right there. Right here.
Oh, there he is.
There he is. Yeah. So you can kind of see him. Right. So there's a lot to love about that particular thing. Sorry, I lost my train of thought for a sec. But
well, I mean, in terms of sort of impulse versus whatever, I think for me, like I said, I've kind of figured out what lines that I collect. Impulse buy to me would be things like if I were to buy a Mezco figure, because I just
gosh.
Yes. Or a Hot Toys or something like that's where like I know like okay I can't go down that road. I can't, because like I said, if I start down a path, for me it's a full sprint. It doesn't.
Yes, it doesn't get easier.
And I get these weird things where like I'll be sort of absolutely fixated on a brand, and so I've learned to sort of impulse learn about a brand, and then the purchasing can kind of come at a later date. Once I know everything, right? Like the impulse for me, and maybe this is my advice to people, if this is sort of a therapy thing for people,
it can be
buyers.
Oh, it can be.
My sort of advice is don't impulse buy, impulse learn everything that you could possibly know. And then by the time you're ready to buy, you'll be equipped to like make a decision that isn't an impulse. It's now an educated purchase. And maybe you'll go, yeah, I don't want these at all. Or maybe you go, okay, here's the 4 that I want, and now I know the market, and now I know, how to budget for them. A good example, SH Figure Arts Dragon Ball figures. I have a bunch of those, but I'm also, there's figures that I would love to have that I went, I'll wait. I'm not going to buy that right away because aftermarket's crazy. And then they re-release them, right? You get another version. That's like if you love Spider-Man, for a few years, Pizza Spider-Man was like the Marvel Legends Spider-Man to get. If you waited, there's now like 3 versions that are better than that. There's the retro carded one with pins, which was then bested by the Renew Your Vows 2-pack one, which in my opinion was then bested by the Amazing Fantasy first appearance Spider-Man. So like the point is, I think the impulse, is kind of related to FOMO. And I think if you can kind of navigate those feelings and those impulses, in the long run, you'll make purchases that you'll feel better about, you'll have less regret about, and that might cost you less money. If you have bottomless, if you're Scrooge McDuck and you have a bottomless pit of money, don't listen to anything that we're saying. Just buy whatever you want. You'll be fine.
Well, that's the goal, right? Then you can buy every Spider-Man under the sun, every Peter Parker, every Miles Morales, every Ben Reilly, whatever you want. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't have to worry about it. Forget anything that we've said.
So we're closing in on about an hour on this episode. Did you want to talk to us a bit about what's going over on I was going to say, but this episode won't make air for a little while. Well, tell us anyway what's going on with Highly Articulated. I just really they got to keep reminding myself we're not live.
Yeah. In general terms, I'm just having a really good time. I have, this is weird, and it's weird when people talk about subs and subscriptions and likes and stuff like that. But I'm having a ton of fun doing it. And way more people are interested, and way more people are sort of paying attention than I ever thought they would, which is fantastic. I do, unboxing videos of figures that aren't new. It's called open late, and the sort of play is that like I'll get something late. It's not the first review you're gonna see, but I usually do them live, so there's interaction and I can sort of chat with people. And then regular videos on Sunday, where it's kind of just the same as everybody else's videos, but hopefully
No,
people
no
enjoy them.
wonder it's called. I thought it was called open late because you do it at like 8 p.m. like
It's
Pacific
also
time.
it's
Because it's
also
like that's why I like that, And you're right. When you want to capitalize on the views, like my Sky Striker came about a week after everybody else's. Then it took about I had to wrap up the terror drone video
yeah.
that was coming out, and then I had to take 3 or 4 days to film the Sky Striker videos. It was almost 2 weeks after,
Yeah.
so I had to come at it from a different angle if I wanted to capitalize the views. Hence, pulling the flag out of storage and making the thumbnail that says "Clear the runway." Like that's what made it different, because I knew I wasn't first, but I also wasn't that late. So, but yeah,
You're
speaking of
not
everything, we
you're not
circled back
last.
to.
Yeah, that's always that's fine. That works. I think and this is going back to what I said about like just doing what you love. The passion will come through. The people will pay attention, and it's ironic because I don't watch review videos. Um, and I
I do
certainly
for bias about buying something. Like I did go check out some Pixel Dan reviews before I bought some Thundercat stuff. Although I knew by that point I was already in. I just needed the confirmation
yeah.
bias. I was looking for deal breakers, and I'm like, I don't think I'm gonna find a deal. Knowing his entire catalog history, there's no deal breaker on these Thundercats.
Yeah, I've had that, and that's again I've had I fairly recently bought, and before this video comes out, I will have done my unboxing for the NECA Last Ronin figures. That I had a bunch of people say like, this is my favorite figure of the year. This is an awesome figure. It's a great figure. I read the comic book, which is amazing, and then I was like, okay, well, I love the comic book, and I love action figures. And then NECA was like, oh, and by the way, we're gonna do some other turtles in that line. And I was like, now there's a line, I gotta get them. So, yeah, I mean, there's probably 1,000 unboxing videos and reviews of those figures by the time I do mine. Um, but I have mine and I'm going to open them. So why not open them with friends, right? Like why not open them with other people? Maybe there's somebody that doesn't have it yet. Maybe they have one question that there's not been a review that answered their question or whatever. So
I've seen them, right? I
yeah,
hopped in on your Father Christmas one, and yeah, there's been a few.
yeah.
And that was a little while ago now, but
I
yeah.
think it's fun. For me, this is community, right? Like these are I'm making friends. I'm interacting with people all over the world that I wouldn't have the opportunity to interact
To
with
me, yes.
if I wasn't collecting toys and if I wasn't doing videos. And so I'm just really happy to be connecting with people and to meet like-minded people. Um, I've said this before, and I'm certainly not chasing numbers, but we've chatted a little bit about this. And when I was doing like Facebook Live, just videos in groups, I think before you started doing your channel, and so we were sort of talking when you started your channel about videos, and I was like, yeah, I'm kind of doing them, it's just fun, whatever. And then you started your channel, and you sort of said to me like, well, you're already doing the video. A couple people said to me like, you're already doing the videos, why not open up the audience? Like, why not open up? And I was like, I don't know, I don't think anybody cares. But whatever. So then the numbers start creeping up. I said to you, I think way back, I said, if 100 people subscribe, I'd be shocked, and I would be flattered and honored to have that many. Now I'm over 200, and now I'm kind of setting my 2023 goal for like 1,000. And that still sounds outrageous to me, but who knows? We'll see.
Hey, I was gonna say, hopefully by the time this video comes out, you're past 300, because you're just over 200, and people can look at Adam's channel in the description section below. So definitely give him a subscription. But if you get to 1,000 by the end of the year, take a 4-hour drive down. I'll buy you I'll buy you dinner or something.
You know that I'm in Vancouver pretty often, and it won't be because I'm.
You know what? I got used to you not being in town because of the pandemic, but I
Yeah.
realized that a lot of restrictions eased up like close to a year ago. By the time this video comes out, it will be basically a year ago.
Yeah,
So
I'm just waiting for warmer weather because I got a mountain pass between the two of us, so
that's right. Well, hopefully I can see you at one of the events here or something. But yeah,
I'm trying to
yeah.
work. Yeah, I'm trying to work them into the schedule.
Well, all right. Then ordinarily I'd ask you what you're excited for, but by the time this comes out, whatever you're excited for is probably already in your hands. So we'll just ride right past that.
Yeah. I mean, well, yeah. I mean, there's lots that I'm excited for. I mean, the thing I'm most excited for,
yeah,
Animal Warriors of the Kingdom, which I bet. Actually, I might. I'm pretty sure by the time this goes live, those will be in my hands. So when this premieres, I will be in the comments, blowing up the comments about how great those figures are.
Can you do that for me? Because I might not be able to be in the comments. Like the reason why this is recorded is because I'm at a toy show literally when this is going on. So if you can be in the comments for me, like taking care of stuff and being like, hey, everybody.
The other big thing I think is the his tank for 2023. The classified his tank. That thing is gonna be awesome.
It's gonna be so awesome.
Using the Sky Striker as my sort of reference point.
Yes, which had so many positives to it. Like I know there were some detriments to it, but man, the Sky Striker was great.
Yeah.
Overall, like the number of figures we got, and I know some people say you need to evaluate that $230 mark based on the Sky Striker and the two initial figures they offered, and they'll say that wasn't worth the $230. Now, when you look at it on the flight stand with all the blast effects, it looks pretty epic, and you get the two figures. Once you take the pre-stretch goal figures, like the late bonus figures, the three that they added, the three Cobras they added, and the two stretch goal figures, I'm like, I don't think you can really argue it's not worth the $230, but it depends where you sort of set your baseline at the $230, right? Because it wasn't going to make it just on that base tier, right?
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of like, there's kind of two types of teachers. There's like the teachers that say like you start off at 100% and you lose things as you sort of move away, which is I think my perspective. And then there's the teachers that will make you earn every percentage that you get. So I think the detractors that are sort of saying like it's not worth it are working from zero. And I think the people that are loving it and are just over the moon and think that the value is I think they were starting from 100.
And a lot of people said that I had a pretty balanced review, but the thing is, you also got to look at what a lot of people don't know when it comes to content creators is you got to look at what's influencing them at the time of the video's production. And I was getting a lot of people saying the wings are too tight, which led me to hairdryer the wings where they connect, and then I didn't have that hard of a time at all, but I still had to mention it because I got warned. Because first thing I did is I tried to put the wings up. This isn't gonna go hairdryer. Didn't try to force it, and then of course I saw the broken tabs. I saw people with two Mickey Mouse Cobra Commander right arms. I saw people with damaged cards. So I had to mention all that, even if I didn't have my issue, because I wasn't gonna be that guy who says mine was fine, screw everybody else. I was never gonna be that person. So, try to be a community person as much as I can. But anyway, Adam, I want to thank you so much for being on TKO yet again. I love that you're just a phone call away. Yeah. And you become one of the partner like sibling channels that I'd love to collaborate with. I know you work a lot with Brick Something as well. Shout out to him. He's one of the patrons on Toy Connections, and even when he's busy with work and everything, he still tries to interact with me, which is great. And okay, you know what? Let's call it a show. And let's if you're in the comments when this is airing, even better. You can watch where I'll be maybe on the road. But again, everybody subscribe to Highly Articulated. Let's get him to his goals and keep it real, keep it safe, have fun, enjoy your toys, everybody. Take care.